Modern.
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 We're prepping for a voyage.
Modern.
The force of an old-fashioned equals whiskey mass times bitters acceleration.
Why don't you make that a double?
Modern bar cart.
What's shaking, cocktail fans? Welcome to episode 286 of the Modern Bar Cart podcast. I'm your host, Eric Kozlik. Thanks for joining me for this, well, I'm not exactly sure what kind of episode this is. It's been a year in the making, and I guess in my mind it's one of those problem episodes that I've finally managed to put into the world. Almost exactly a year ago, someone from a brand called BOÇE, B-O-C-E, with a little accent on top of the C, sent me a drinks coaster that they proposed would make any alcoholic beverage placed on it taste better, smoother, you know how much I hate that word, and more drinkable. And to make matters worse, or maybe better depending on how you think about it, they said this drink coaster operates using quantum physics, employing a process called quantum tunneling to infuse the beverage with a specific wavelength of light. This, they claim, helps to reduce a certain class of compounds called fusel oils that may be responsible for certain undesirable flavors in distilled spirits. Now, my background is in psychology and poetry, and of course, spirits and cocktails. I'm no physicist. Strangely enough, though, as I've spent the last several years of my life independently studying complex systems science, I've had to familiarize myself with quite a bit of physics, including the quantum variety, in order to wrap my head around subjects like entropy, emergence, and the arrow of time. The American physicist John Wheeler is quoted as saying, "If you are not completely confused by quantum mechanics, you do not understand it," which I think is an apt way of putting it. So there I was with this coaster. It's clearly being marketed as a futuristic technology, but the more I thought about it, the more I felt myself being pulled 100 years into the past, when the notion of quantum physics was first breaking onto the world stage. These first few decades of the 20th century were a time of high highs and low lows. Wars were great, and so were depressions. Entire decades roared, generations were lost, and jazz redefined what music meant. People were actively working out what it was to be modern, which back then was the wave of the future. Peering back through the mists of time at this Gatsby-esque era, I'm always entertained by the hyperbole of it. The fedoras and mobsters, the lavish architecture, but also by the way in which an entire culture seemed to be cautiously groping its way toward the future, like a person in a dark room searching for a light switch. So I thought it might be fun to throw a little drama and, of course, some humor and hyperbole into the process of testing this bizarre quantum coaster. If there are any physics fans listening, I tried to pack as many jokes and references as I could into the silly narrative container of this blind tasting that I conducted with my good friend Ethan Hall. I had a lot of fun putting this together, and I think that will come out in the delivery, so please pour yourself a drink and enjoy.
American Mystery Theater presents Eric Kozlik and the Case of the Quantum Coaster. It was a Thursday just like any other. I was thinking it was about time to ditch my cluttered, smoke-filled office for an even smokier bar when suddenly, danger darkened my doorway. Her name was Evelyn Sinclair. I'd met her once before at my favorite pool hall. She used to date the barman there, and the way Johnny used to talk about her, I knew I was looking at 5.5 feet of pure trouble standing in front of me in a red dress.
Mr. Kozlik, I need your help.
Help is a 4-letter word these days. What's your story, sister?
It's not just a story, Eric. It's science. It's called a quantum coaster.
Like a bowler without a ball, nothing about this case was up my alley. Science was never my bag. The streets are my laboratory, and the crooks in this city are the only particles I tangle with. But there was something about this dame I just couldn't resist, and as hard as I tried not to care, I was like a field of corn. All ears. So you're telling me that a whole universe worth of new physics is packed into this one lousy drink coaster?
I'm not sure what to think. Someone just left it on my doorstep with a note. Here, read it.
It says, "This coaster uses patented light-wave frequency technology and quantum tunneling to reduce the fusel oils in distilled spirits, rendering them utterly smooth and drinkable." Fusel oils, huh? Sounds like something my uncle puts in his Packard when it starts riding rough. And as if that's not strange enough, I don't have the foggiest idea what quantum tunneling even means.
It all sounds a little spooky to me, but I'm in such a state, I just can't seem to resolve it. I need you to help me figure out if this quantum coaster is the real deal or a hoax.
As I looked at her there, eyes full of uncertainty, I was reminded of this funny thing my old pal Irv Schrodinger used to say to me. "'Cause, my friend," he'd say like a warning, "some days you poison the cat, and some days the cat poisons you." And in that moment, I knew I had to see this case through to find out which it would be. "All right, Miss Sinclair, I'll look into it, but science isn't exactly my strong suit. I'll need to call in a favor."
I'll be waiting. I just hope you can make some sense out of this mess.
"Hello, Ethan? Yeah, I've got a job for you. Something a little different." A couple hours later, I found myself standing in front of the home of my good friend and drinking chum, Ethan Hall. In my beat-up briefcase, there was a bottle of Seagram No. 7 whiskey, some rum I picked up on my last vacation to Puerto Rico, and a mysterious blue coaster packed with more secrets than a church confessional.
Hey, pal, what's going on? You sounded a bit strange on the phone.
Ever seen one of these?
A coaster? You came all the way across the city to show me a coaster?
Not just any coaster. They're calling it a quantum coaster. Claims to use quantum tunneling to eliminate fusel oils in whiskey.
Quantum tunneling? That's not something you usually find in a bar accessory.
That's why I'm here. I need to know if this thing is the real deal or if someone's selling snake oil, and I need to know fast. There's a little lady who's very upset, and this gizmo is at the center of it all.
Buddy, what have you gotten yourself into this time?
Just another day at the office, Ethan. Can you take a look at it with me? Figure out if there's any truth to these claims?
All right, come on in. I'll get some glasses.
In this city, you've got to be careful who you trust with a mystery as serious as a quantum coaster. But I trusted Ethan more than most. He knew his way around a whiskey and a rum, and if you were a fly on the wall that evening watching us smell and taste the mysteries of quantum physics, this is what you might have heard.
Well, Ethan, thank you for helping me to see if we can get to some sort of truth about this little gizmo we've got in front of us here. Of course, we're referring to this beautiful blue acrylic coaster, the BO쪼E coaster. So this was sent to me actually a while back, and I've been puzzling on a way to A, take it seriously, B, test it in a somewhat structured control fashion. So that's, I think, what we're going to try and do here today. We'll get into some of the claims, some of the specific claims that this company is making as we go here. But essentially, the overview for listeners is that this coaster is supposed to make your whiskey taste smoother and your wine taste better. Basically, you set something on it for, what was it 3 or 5 minutes?
It was 3. I saw 3 and 5. I think we can vamp for 3.
Okay,
and we'll revisit it.
Great. So what we're going to do right now is we've each got 2 glasses in front of us, 2 identical on our end glasses. I've got some Glencairns, you've got some Small Rocks. They each have little pieces of tape on the bottom. I'll show one of these on my end has a little dot on it and the other does not. So that is how I'm going to be blinding myself. And we've got two identical kind of like low quality whiskeys here on this end. We might call bottom shelf. So Seagram's 7 blended whiskey. And so we're just going to put this to the test right now. Why don't you crack it open, and then during the 3-minute waiting period, I can take you through a little bit more. So you're going to dump one of these little airplane bottles into each of your glasses. You're going to find the one with the dot on it, and you're going to place that one on the coaster, and go ahead and take the other one and put it far away from the coaster relative to where you're sitting, if you can. So I've got no dot here. Put that way over here where it can't see the coaster. And we've got a dot on this one. I'm going to keep my eye on the clock here, and we're going to do a rough 3 minutes. You've got yours on your coaster. I've got mine on my coaster. I've got a second camera angle, so we make sure that there's no like ghosts that come out of this, or quantum radiation leaks that occur. But basically, I'm calling this a quantum coaster because the literature says that it is employing quantum tunneling and certain wavelengths of light and stuff that essentially works to smooth out impurities that they're calling fusel oils in certain distilled spirits. So you had a chance to look at this for the first time, like in depth today. What did you think of your review of this coaster and its literature?
The website is put together with more going for it than I was necessarily anticipating. I could have just as easily seen this as a dark background text only website telling me about the conspiracies in the beverage industry and the way that we can resist these by purchasing the coaster. In case the people from this company are watching, they can have that one. Might be a pivot. You can see that brand in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
My understanding is they have sold over 15,000 of these. I am very supportive of anyone who can sell a direct-to-consumer beverage product successfully. They've been a part of accelerator programs, much more prominent ones involving Gordon Ramsay, it appears, and also that something relating to wavelengths of light or quantum tunneling is smoothing out, to your point, the edges on these drinks. Now, the first thing that came to mind for me is, if you set something out for 3 minutes, especially wine, does the wine not breathe at that point? Is this just kind of helping people slow down and allow their spirits to mellow, or their drinks to mellow out? And so I like that we're doing this side by side. I see a lot about technology, energy transfer technology, and I would also say, this could be an experience. Yeah, I mean, they say drinking experience on their website. I don't know. This is a fun one to find out.
So I'm sharing the website on my screen right now, and it's their tagline says, "Say goodbye to the bite, burn, and harshness. Say hello to a smooth, more flavorful drink in just 3 minutes, guaranteed." All right. Well, I don't know what the consequences of their guarantee are. Maybe a refund, I guess. Here we've got a graphic that shows, this blue. This color is somehow patented, I believe, right? Because this is just an acrylic coaster, right? There's nothing special about this coaster. It's all the color. So I don't know how they're intellectually protecting their color. But I'm pretty sure colors are a thing that you can at least trademark and potentially patent. It's two different types of processes. But basically, they say using a combination of light waves and frequencies, our patent-protected technology, the color, reduces the harshness, bite, and burn of wine or spirits without affecting the alcohol content. Because God forbid, right? And then they also have a lot of lab results listed on their site. They've actually gotten this tested by a lab that is accredited by the TTB, the government sub-agency that approves spirits. So they did go to some sort of accredited institution to run this through a gas spectrometer, GCMS, mass spectrometer. And we can maybe get into some of those results as we go here. But I'm noticing that our 3 minutes have certainly elapsed. So I figure I'll stop sharing my screen and we can maybe go to the whiskey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this coaster. I'm going to put it aside. And now I've got these 2 glasses of whiskey. And I'm just going to kind of, as I'm talking here, do a little bit of the little shell game. So to distract ourselves, what is the best? What's the best spirit that you've tasted recently?
Oh, best? I was way late on the game. Well, all right. So spirit being tasted directly versus spirit being used in something.
Oh, fair.
I found recently that I don't really care for the taste of gin until I do something with it. But I finally got on board with Sipsmith and have made some freaking awesome martinis the last week or so.
Okay.
Best individual spirit I've tasted recently. I think we're gonna be it's up there. One of the ones we'll be talking about, and then the last one is just an old standard. But I gotta say the barrel strength Maker's Mark, delightful. That's not one I would be trying to remove fusel oils from, but that's a pretty good standby. Not controversial and not interesting by any means. Just tasty and really, really alcoholic.
Well, I switched directions a couple times. I have no clue what is in front of me, and I cannot see through my little piece of tape here. So I think our first project is to nose these and I don't know, nose and taste. So I'm gonna do a little bit of
I gotta say,
analysis.
You wanted to do a blind tasting, and I think I could probably blind myself with enough of this.
Yeah. Well, and you've got wider mouth glasses than I do, but again, that's good. We're putting it through 2 different conditions.
Oh, I don't know. That was.
I'm getting relatively similar levels of fruitiness on the nose. I'm not noticing a distinct absence of ethanol, right? Like, so with a whiskey like this, sort of like a bottom shelf whiskey, what I would expect is that kind of nail polish remover, right?
Yeah, we're clocking at 40%, so I'm getting all of the disinfectant that I would expect.
And I mean, I'm coming into this skeptical that there is a difference. So I'm trying to fight against that and just say, between these glasses, is there a difference?
I don't think they smell all that bad. If this just becomes a review of Seagram 7, I guess, reach out and see if they want to sponsor you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice color, right? Like that's a beautiful color in the glass. I'm going to take a sip.
I'm just reading over these. 75% NGS, by the way.
Well, yeah. I gotta say, I don't hate it. All right. I tasted one, the one on my left. Oh, the after. There's a serious bitterness on the after for me. Like I get sides and back of the tongue, some serious bitterness on that, like almost metallic bitterness. Let me see if that happens with this other one. No, I'm getting fairly identical flavor profiles. What are you getting?
So I went. So I went 1-2. Number one, I'll have to go back to number one. Number one, I found I want to say altogether offensive. It's got whiskey like flavors. If you asked the replicator to generate the flavors of whiskey, you might want to retool it a little bit, but it got most of those. The second one, what I'm having a hard time parsing is, am I just more used to tasting this stuff now?
Mm-hmm. So you are getting a difference then, potentially.
Well, I don't know. Let me go in reverse order. This would be another. Should we do a quick shuffle again?
I would say no. Don't shuffle anymore because we're blind. Now keep this comparison the same, so at least we know if there is a difference, which one it is. I'm getting on On the palate, I got almost no discernible difference. Nothing that I could plant a flag in and say, difference, this is different. But on the nose, I thought I was maybe perceiving like a bit of a harsher aroma on one. But you know what? I'll go on record and say, I think it would be hilarious if the one without the one that didn't get the treatment is actually the one I prefer. But I may be entirely inventing this, but I get a fruitier, softer, more confectionery aroma on the one in my left hand, and a slightly more cardboardy kind of musty aroma on the other one. Again, couldn't perceive that on the palate, but on the nose, I could make an argument for there being a difference. And I should also add that these airplane bottles, I picked them all up off the shelf in one handful. They all came from the same lot. I'm sure they came off the assembly line at roughly the same time. So we're dealing with the same quote unquote batch, such that it is of whiskey.
Yeah, it tastes to me, there's less residual sweetness going on than you would in we'll just say it, a more expensive, higher end blended American whiskey or Canadian whiskey, or really just any whiskey that's not 75% neutral grain spirit. It's got whiskey characteristics. It's got whiskey flavors. It tastes, it like I said at the beginning, it is, if someone drew whiskey from memory, it gets you pretty close there.
Yeah.
I can't quite discern which one I like more. So let me go back one more time to the well, and then, no pun intended, about this being a well spirit.
Yeah. One thing that I just went back and did is one of these spirits is on my right hand side, one's on my left. One of the things that you can do is you can switch nostrils a little bit, and because you just get a slightly different pathway. Your everyone's body is different, and their olfaction works differently. And once I started nosing with both nostrils on both of these samples, that difference that I was maybe perceiving kind of went away. So where I finally stand on this sample analysis is that if you put a gun to my head, I would say the one on my left is slightly overall rounder, fruitier, and smoother, and the one on my right is maybe just almost imperceptibly a little bit harsher. So I could say that maybe there's a slight difference, but we don't even know which one of these it is. And I'll just say, before we do the reveal, all of the stuff on their website is showing the BOʿE Coaster front and center. One of them is sitting on the BOʿE Coaster. One of them is not sitting on the BOʿE Coaster. Like, have you ever seen a bigger instance of the placebo effect?
I'm really trying not to go there. I didn't want to. What minute are we at? And we hit the P word. I'm really trying to avoid that one. I do think we may need to design a bonus content experiment, and we've got it with a third friend, and we blindfold him, and only we know,
or her.
No, I have a specific person in mind.
Okay, yeah.
And I just like to get a preference, not even explain the experiment, not even explain whether they're different. Just say, which these do you think taste better?
Fair.
And I think we've all consumed enough whiskey that, gun to your head, you're gonna have to make a decision. Are you
getting any differences?
I mean, I've had like half an airplane bottle of whiskey. Both of them taste pretty good at this point to me.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I'm not sure that I'm getting difference. I don't trust myself enough. Gun to my head, this one I tasted first is giving me a little bit.
All right. I'm going to say the one on my left here is better, and the one on my right is worse. So for the complete unveil, the one on my right did not have the coaster. The one on the left did have the coaster.
Hey, coaster wins in a sample size of 2.
Coaster just won.
Damn it.
I'm pretty upset about that. I think the coaster won, bro. I mean, do you have a sense of how painful this is for me to admit?
Yeah. I'm enjoying this a lot because I like being challenged in my view of reality. I don't know that I would. Here's the thing for me. I would not buy either of these if preferred brands or things that I think taste better were available. So I'm not saying either of these are good.
Well, but isn't it? It sort of harkens back to the just run your vodka through a Brita filter, bro. Like, well, why? Or I could just buy something that doesn't need to get run through a Brita filter, right? It's harkening back to that moment in the infomercial where someone fails to do a basic task. And so it's like that, and so now this gadget is coming in to replace someone's failure to just do a basic task that all normal people can do. So it's a bit of a straw man thing for me. It's just like, all right, well, just don't drink that thing then. Get something better. Like, why are we crying about this and like moving into the world of woo? The guy who invented this, I will say, I had email transactions with him. He is an alternative healer based in Florida, where all good things come from. He has been, he says he's been for several decades now working quantum physics into his practice, which to me is kind of like saying, I used gravity to drink this whiskey. It's true because gravity is a force that's everywhere and is affecting everything constantly, but it doesn't really tell me anything about how the drinking of the whiskey works, in the same way that quantum mechanics is just like a way of describing the universe. So I'm not sure how he's working quantum mechanics into a medical practice, but I just tasted this and I
came in from a skeptical bent, but look, I'm not reviewing Seagram's 7, thankfully.
Yeah. Yep.
I also think this might be a good segment for your future spirits tastings. Just keep this on the side, and for every spirit you taste, play your little.
Yeah, I feel like I need some brand money for that if they were going to get me to do that. But so that was what we would probably call like a blinded side by side comparison. As we get set up for the next one here, like I just wanted to pose the question to you, like, what do you think that there is something at work at a level of fundamental physics and light waves and stuff like that could truly have this big of an impact on flavor? Now, granted, I noticed a small impact, but like an impact at all,
Couple things. Yes, light has an impact on flavor. We both know that. That was like kind of I know that's not where you're going with this, but my first thought before you reminded me that this works through opaque surfaces, I'd be very interested in knowing if it works through reflective.
Right. So they said in the brand literature, they mentioned that this would work through an aluminum can, and it would work through, like they say it works through wine glasses, right? So like even when the glass is like far like raised and elevated above this coaster on a stem. So the other thing that he mentions, and I had email correspondence with this guy, and he was although came off a little less than reliable on the science front, was at least kind in the transaction. So I got to give him that credit. But, when I mentioned light, there is some language early on that they said, well, the light infuses the liquid. It's like, so I asked him, I was like, well, does light really infuse? Like, my sense of light is that light passes through things, right? That's how we understand light. And he said, no, it actually infuses. So I'm not quite sure how this gentleman is understanding and describing what's going on, but he seems to think that the light is infusing and then having some effect on fusel oils, which, I mean, are you familiar with fusel oils at all in terms of like what their impact on flavor in alcohol?
My understanding is fusel oils bad.
Well, fusel oil's tails, right? And tails are part of the cuts. So yeah, pretty much. On the other hand, in aged spirits, you want, sometimes if you want to age for a long time, you can go deeper into the cut, and some of those fusel oils will oxidize over time in the barrel and create some interesting notes. So fusel oils, not inherently bad. And what I found interesting is that the analysis that they ran through this lab, it was a fusel oil panel that they ran through the GCMS, but it also included methanol. And methanol is part of the heads cut in a spirits run. And methanol is that sort of acetone, like nail polish remover type thing. When you get that, when I'm judging spirits professionally and I smell that, I write down headsy, right? Which is, something maybe they didn't go deep enough and into their heads cut. And so I found it interesting that, because the difference between the heads and tails is that the stuff that in the heads boils at a lower temperature and is lighter, therefore kind of, and then we call them fusel oils, not because they're actually oily per se, they can feel that way in the mouth, but just because they're heavier and they give that oily mouth feel. They are still volatile compounds that we can smell. Right. You don't think of oil as being something that volatilizes well. So I just wanted to draw that slight distinction. So it was interesting to go into the results. And I would encourage anybody who's curious about this to look at these results, because when you look at the graphics, the GCMS readout indicates that that in the coaster sample, it lowered certain acetyl alcohol or acetyl alcohol, for example. Let me see. I'll pull it up and actually give you a good one here. Active amyl alcohol, right? So we've got the coaster had about 295 parts per million, and the one not on the coaster had about 305. So that's a difference of 10 parts per million that this GCMS picked up, and the people who ran this test are saying that that's statistically significant at P equals 0.02, 0.019, which is a pretty impressive P level. Anybody who knows stats knows that in order for something to be statistically significant, P needs to be less than 0.05 in most cases, or 0.02 in some extreme cases, and P is 0.019 in this case, so just under 0.02. But they're saying that with a difference of only 10 parts per million, and that's kind of blowing my mind. What's your take on that?
All right, so if this is like how, I don't want to get into the biology of how our taste buds work or how that connects into our nervous system or our perception in the brain. So they're throwing two things at us that are really interesting to me. One is that there's an alternative healer guy who is using these coasters, and I don't know his process. I wouldn't like pretend to be an expert on what he's doing, and there's plenty of stuff I don't understand. That whatever he's doing is working its way through this coaster into whatever I'm drinking.
Wait, whatever he's doing is coming. He's channeling his.
Well, I'm thinking about blessings. I'm thinking about all kinds of different ways we try to convey intent, different ways that we try to convey meaning, and the transaction or the relationship between you and the guy, gal, whoever, because for all I know, maybe he's got a co-packer, whoever manufactured this and signed off on it, designed it and got it to you, and that could have a perceptible effect. Now, the measurable and statistical significance, that one has me. I don't have a good explanation for it, and I really do think that's why they put these GCMS results on there. I'm not suggesting that we should commission a study, have another lab, have the same lab do this, anything like that. I find it interesting to go in both those directions because I'm not looking, I'm of, man, this becomes a completely different podcast. I am not looking for scientific proof of a higher power. I'm not looking for scientific proof of the supernatural. Scientific scientific evidence of something I can't explain. Scientific evidence of the existence of Sasquatch? Yeah, that would be good.
We both want that, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not looking for this guy. We should probably ask. We should probably ask him where he comes down on on the skunk ape.
Yeah, Florida skunk ape, of course.
Yeah. But that's where I'm struggling a little bit. Is I don't know that those lab test results are needed. It's actually kind of muddying it for me because if they just said buy it and trust us, or if they had just done, which you can get statistically significant samples, they could have just had a bunch of subjects go and taste these things and do some kind of experiment like this. That's a study design. So they're really pushing two different levers here, and that's my criticism isn't on whether this thing works or not. It's that they're telling me it works in two different ways that I don't think are compatible.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're trying to validate with the hard science, but then they're also I mean, and I said this in my email to him, like at the very least, you're getting people to let their drinks breathe, which is great. Just letting a drink breathe is going to get it done. Right. So I've got a few more thoughts I want to share, but we should get our next set of these rolling. So what we're going to do next is a triangle test. I'd like you to line up your three glasses. And I would like you to put the one with the dot right in the middle, please. Okay. The reason why I'm saying this is because, and then I'd like you to take your bottle of the beautiful rum that you brought back from Puerto Rico that I've already enjoyed quite a bit. I'd like you to give it a little swirl, right? Just in case there was some flavor at the bottom that's not at the top of this bottle. Give it a little swirl, right? All right, now crack it and pour a half ounce. I've got a jigger here. Pour a half ounce in each of your glasses, starting with the one on the left. Do the one on the middle second so that there's no time effect here. Trying to get this as consistent as humanly possible. Make sure that there are no confounds. All right. So we've got our three samples here. And now I'm going to grab the coaster, put the dot one, confirm. Yep. Put the dot on the coaster. And I'm going to put the other two as far away, but in different directions. Maybe I should put them both in the same direction here. Oh, but then their aromas might merge. I don't know. I'm overthinking this way too much, but all right, I've got our time signature. So a couple other thoughts, and then I'll describe the triangle test that we're about to do on this new spirit. A couple other thoughts. So you'll notice that on the coaster, I'm not going to pick it up, but there's a little raindrop, right? So they call this raindrop technology or something to that effect. And this doctor has found that this color is associated with the wavelength of light that is somehow connected to falling rain, right? And this therapeutic connection is somehow said to infuse, right? I can't really quite follow it. And in the email transaction that I had, he linked me to the Wikipedia page of this person named Masaru Emoto. And I'm going to share my screen again because this is almost too good. So if folks are wondering why I'm a little bit skeptical here. So here I'm on the Wikipedia page from Masaru Emoto, and he was a Japanese businessman, author, and pseudoscientist, right? So right away, he's kind of, Wikipedia is at least discrediting him. And his claim is that that human consciousness could affect the molecular structure of water. Basically, he ran a bunch of tests where he put words and intentions and stuff by waters, by water, samples of water. And then he froze the water and did experiments on the structure of the ice crystals that then formed. And if you go down to reception here in the Wikipedia page, you'll read commentators have criticized Emoto for insufficient experimental controls and for not sharing enough details of experiments with the scientific community. Right. So here we have the classic replication issue of like, all right, you're claiming some stuff, but you're not giving other people the opportunity to replicate it. So I think this person inspired the doctor who invented the BOʿE Coaster, and again, this is one of the serious sources of skepticism for me, because I just, I have a hard time believing that, especially when there are people smarter and more integrated with that community than I am. They're saying, yeah, this guy, it's pseudoscience and you can't replicate it. So I don't know. Any thoughts on infusing intentions into water? It seems to be almost precisely what you were kind of alluding to earlier.
Right. And maybe I picked up on this from the first time we discussed doing this record, or maybe I came across this another time. We're getting a little further afield from, you can play music to plants, and so
you can play music to whiskey barrels, and that's a big selling point too.
Yeah, well, the one with the plants, I haven't examined their data. I think that one actually might be real. Where I'm going is, how do you okay, if we're going to go into the science side of it, is I give this guy, I'm actually going to give this Emoto guy a little bit of credit. How do you measure intentions? How do you measure vibes?
Bro.
Yeah. This is getting a little, like, I'm really trying. I'm very much opening my mind to, okay, why can't you replicate his experiment? Have people really tried to replicate his experiment, or did they just say, you didn't do it right, you're not in science anymore? Those are two different things. If you fail to replicate, that's a good sign that your tool set is at least wrong. And the other point that I was going to go with, man, I'm going to really try to get on their side just for today. Your camera that's pointing at that glass might not be able to capture all the wavelengths, the non-visible wavelengths that could be infusing. I worry about the careful choice of words, and I think it's great that you pushed back and asked the question: was that really the right word here?
Infuse, yeah. Well, and I mean, if you look, let's go deeper. If you look right underneath this coaster, what we have is the desecrated corpse of a beautiful cherry tree. This is a real cherry table that I'm on. So I think maybe the coaster is protecting this glass from the bad juju of the tree that was slaughtered to create this table, which is currently infusing the other two glasses. So if this triangle test is successful and we get 2 data points indicating that maybe there is something to this coaster thing, I might just need to wear it around my neck to protect against bad vibes elsewhere in life. And it validates the claim that maybe my lack of success in life is due to the fact that I've been working on the corpse of this tree for so many years. So might need to get some of that sage in my backyard and get burning. Let's start the triangle test here. We've definitely given this plenty of time. So I'm going to eliminate the BOʿE Coaster from the testing surface. And I'm going to do the same thing. Just kind of start to mix these up a little bit. let's see what other subjects. Tell us a little bit about the rum in this glass, because you got to visit Puerto Rico and it's really beautiful. So any information you can share on it would be lovely.
Yeah. So my quest for this came from a different work. I hope you don't mind me plugging, folks. Is that there is a local distillery here that was making Pitoro Clandestino. You know, your traditional. I don't like to just say, "Oh, your moonshine," but your. But, you know, Puerto Rico has a. There's a lot. I'm not going to try to become the anthropologist and try to explain the history of the peoples of Puerto Rico. What I will say is
they got moonshine down there.
Yeah, we're all familiar with Puerto Rican rum. We've all had Bacardi and those other products. There's all sorts of stuff we could get into, and better people than myself, I would recommend Matt Petrick, could talk your ear off about that.
Oh, that's good. Matt Petrick is actually leading the a one-day-long rum class at this year's American Distilling Institute annual conference and trade show. So Matt Petrick will be in the Mid-Atlantic in late August.
I would strongly recommend. So this is to say I wanted to see what is a craft and artisan spirit from Puerto Rico look like, and there are a few, not a ton. And when I was down there, I did find a product called Ron Pepon. It's a agricole style cane spirit. So, you know, think unaged, think cane juice as opposed to molasses. Think made in smaller batches. Not always better, but this one in this case is pot still, which is a little different from a lot of the agricole style rums that I had. That was interesting.
Probably a lot of fusel oils in those pot stills, I hear.
And we'll find out. And I hunted down and went to a supermarket to go pick up a couple of bottles of these because you were nice enough to be watching my dog. Thank you. While I went and drank a bunch of rums made by big and small manufacturers all over the island of Puerto Rico. It was lovely. Makes a good daiquiri. Tastes very good. This stuff smells great. I have no concerns about doing this tasting. I think I'm going to say all three are delicious.
Yeah, well, and so here, like, there's another question, right? In terms of functionality, could this coaster make good things taste better instead of bad things taste okay? Like, is it actively making good things taste better? Or does it get into diminishing returns once you get into spirits that are decent, right? Which, I don't know, I think that's a useful question for the product makers themselves. So I'm just going to start nosing here. I have no clue where I'm at. I'm getting pretty identical noses on all three of these. I get this nice bready note in the center, which is kind of interesting. I haven't ever sat down with this and just nosed it in a Glencairn.
What's interesting to me, and maybe not surprising, this clocks in at 5% higher. So this is a 45% alcohol spirit. This is a little hot. This should be a little hotter than what we were tasting first.
Yeah. Well, it's a little hotter on the palate to me. It's less watery on the palate, which is again what you'd expect, 5% less watery. But it's substantially less watery and more mouth-watering. I get like a nice salivary response from this. It's a little savory, like you'd expect from an agricole, but a good punch of sweetness. Like, this is just like it's refined. It's a beautiful agricole style rum. So kudos to Puerto Rico and the makers of Ron Pepon here. Give them a little shout out here, Ron Pepon.
Yeah, if you can find it in the U.S., on the U.S. mainland, you should absolutely pick it up if you're a fan of the traditional agricole style rums. If you like a daiquiri, reason why my bottle is half. Well, I'm going to say half empty because this is a bad thing that there's half of it's gone. A lot of
so come out of it. Let me see if I can get a difference here. So this is a triangle test, and so the goal is you do have a proverbial gun to your head here. You need to pick one of these that is not like the others.
Ooh, I love this.
And the goal is we're each going to pick one. We'll see if we both pick the one where it was the BOÇE Coaster. I think that's pretty damning evidence of like this actually being legitimate. So from the first two, I didn't get any major difference in flavor. And I've been doing some water palette cleanses here. And then number 3, I'm getting that it's got a very distinctive aromatic footprint, which is why I can say confidently that I'm not getting any difference in aroma between these 3 in the same way that I did with the Seagrams. There's that little bready note right in the middle, and then it just kind of spreads out into all those like really classic agricole notes that you would expect. It reminds me of like drinking all those delicious Kohana rums. Very, very much in the same vein.
I'm getting my middle one, getting like a teeny bit more body.
Okay.
They're all nosing about the same. So if it was methanol, not picking up a difference in methanol. But I'm going to go right to left and see if that happens, or I'll go middle out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm getting zero difference in aroma, and so I think then it goes to taste. So I'll go middle out. You're right. I'm just not. I'll do that. I'll do my last one since the one on the left is still fresh for me. Those are 2 identical palettes to me, and if I had to say one thing, the one on the right for me, the one on my right here, has a slightly more savory quality to it. So I'm getting a little bit more of that olive, a little bit more of the that buttery kind of mouthfeel texture. So since I can't perceive anything on the aroma for these, I'm going to have to go that like gun. This is my gun to my head moment, even though it's not substantial. I'm going to say gun to my head. One on the right would be the BOÇE, or is the one that's different. I don't know that it's the one that was on the BOÇE Coaster. It's the one that's different though in this triangle test for me.
There's one in the middle. I mean, I'm anchoring back to the first perceptible difference I have. I'm going to say this one in the middle it's got something. Could just be that it could just be that my palate has warmed up and is more accepting of these rums. It could be leftover. Here's a bit of a challenge though. It could be leftover intentions from having tasted the BOÇE Coaster first.
There could be residual intentions in your rum.
And crap, I may have messed with this experiment because I set my water bottle down on the BOÇE Coaster.
Oh no! What have you done? Yeah, wow.
So, gun to my head, I've just ruined the experiment. The scientist is going to take me out back.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we do the reveal? I'm going to do my reveal because this is the one I think it is here. And it is a no dot.
I'm a no dot as well. That's a no for me, Dot. Let me see. No dot. Oh, it was number 1. All right.
Okay. Mine was the one on the left. So here's where we stand. We ran 2 experiments. One of them was a blind side by side. You didn't really perceive anything that you were willing to go out on a limb for. I thought one was better than the other, and it turned out that was the BOÇE Coaster. So it was the experimental versus the control variable. And then once we moved up to the Ron Papone, probably what we would probably consider a higher quality spirit, slightly higher alcohol, which should contribute to those burning sensations, but didn't really. We, in a triangle test, a more sensitive test than the initial one, picked out, we both failed. So the BOÇE was not represented in the ones that we thought were different. So knowing that, any thoughts you want to put out just to wrap us up? Any intentions, I should say?
I'm going to give you a couple. First off, if we were to test marketing claims, you're getting a little closer to it made a bad spirit. It might have made a bad spirit taste better. This was by no means. It was by no means a pocket breaker. The Ron Pepone, but I think probably get a couple gallons of Seagrams for the price of one 750 ml of that one. So I do wonder if we, I'm not saying I want to replicate this on a triangle test, but it might have that. I'm also reminded of another podcast that likes to test things that are a little bit woo-woo, a little bit out there. Questions I would have for you. I'm going to put these back to you, and I might forget some of these. So on a pocket drainer measure, how much do these coasters retail for?
I don't know, but I can tell you because they are sold on Amazon and they're on whatever that Gordon Ramsay thing is. Okay, so you ready for this?
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't look this up. They're $30 for a 2-pack.
Okay, so $15 a coaster.
And the rating is 3.8 out of 5. 59% are 5-star reviews, and 21% are 1-star reviews. I can't derail this conversation by diving into all these reviews, but I'm going to save that later for some popcorn.
All right, so
$30 for 2 acrylic coasters, which...
Yeah, so there may be...
this cost 50 cents to make on the high end.
Yeah, so first question of, is it a pocket drainer? It's medium. We're not talking about...
Okay, you're talking just in general. Will you spend $30 on something that helps improve your life? Okay, yeah, I'll say medium.
Yeah, my example would be that you have some great Glencairn glasses in front of you, and I've got some nice high end, old fashioned or rocks glasses in front of me. If similar investment for a set of those, maybe even less so, to enhance my drinking experience. So it's not free, but $30 is not egregious. No one's coming after you for hundreds of dollars. Second question for you. On a science versus pseudoscience spectrum, where one is where one end of the spectrum is climate change, and the other end of the spectrum is there are the spirits of dead aliens in our blood that make us feel bad sometimes.
Are those two separate ends of a spectrum?
All right, this one might not work on you. Where does this fall for you?
I go back to my statement earlier about gravity, which is so these people are currently on American network television saying, can you believe how much quantum mechanics improves the quality of your Jack Daniels? Nothing against Jack Daniels. It was referenced in my my email exchange with this doctor, because apparently they also have label technology where now brands can pay them for the labels, and it can sit there and infuse the label on the shelf. So good vibes on the shelf too. But these people are going around saying, can you imagine, do you see how good quantum mechanics, aka the placebo effect, on TV? Because there's no way they could run this experiment blinded on a network television show. The economics and attention span of people just doesn't work that way. So can you imagine how amazing this quantum mechanics, and totally not the placebo effect of this pretty blue coaster, makes your drink taste? And that is the equivalent of me walking around my neighborhood saying when it rains, being isn't it amazing how gravity makes this ground wet? I'm just well, gravity's not making the ground wet. The rain is making the ground wet. And so much, and here's my point, so much about science, especially complexity science, complex systems and emergence, and things that are very heavily tied to discussions about quantum mechanics and how the universe operates at its fundamental levels, are impacted by levels of description. So in just the same way, I don't go around to normal people in my neighborhood being isn't this gravity amazing? I don't think these people should be look at how awesome these quantum mechanics are. Mm-hmm. It's a 50-cent coaster that you're charging $30 for, that gets people to put their drinks on it for 3 to 5 minutes, forget about it. So it probably even gets longer than that. And you just benefit from the drink opening up a little bit.
Okay, so on a pseudoscience perspective, you're going...
I'm going like, this is like, so it may be real science. I just like to be shown it and not given lip service, because a lot of what the doctor explained in his emails is that people's eyes glaze over when he starts talking about quantum mechanics. I'm like, well, great. I listen to probably 3 podcasts that are about physics, and even though I'm not an expert on the subject, I'm emailing you so my eyes aren't glazing over. So I'd appreciate the respect of like if there is actual science, walk me through it. Walk me through how light infuses rather than passing through. Walk me through why methanol was on your fusel oil panels and how 5 parts per million is not p hacking, and that difference is actually statistically significant. Like, just walk me through all that, and I'm all ears.
All right, I'm going to be a little more generous on the pseudoscience side of it, which is to say, I mean, if you're giving it on a pseudoscience, we'll say 1 out of 10, one is, or you're giving it like a 1 out of 10. In terms of scientific validity, maybe a 0.
I'll give it a 2 or a 3. I'll give it a 2 or 3 because there's something going on. I just don't think it's the things that they're claiming are going on.
Right. I'm going to give them I'm going to give them 1 more point than you, and that's only because they are using, and my critique has to do with, their use of measurements and then their use of things that can't be measured. And while I do not think it's this man's job to go and prove, and I won't even say the unprovable, but to go and scientifically demonstrate the other claims he's making, it does make it a little harder for me to follow. So I'm always critical of people on the route in which they communicate ideas. So that's where he's getting the ding for me. And then the last one I want to get at is, I mean, there are a few other routes we can go. Who does it harm? I don't really think it's harming anyone. And so to me, it's not very dangerous. It's not very creepy. It's not saying that there are ghosts in my spirits and exorcising those.
See, that I want. I'm there for that. Right? Like the graveyard maple syrup cask aged whiskey from Tamworth Spirits that was collected from, maple trees that are next to a colonial era graveyard. Like, yeah, give me the dead people maple syrup whiskey. That I want that. That I'm into. Just this it's a little bit tricky, and I will say the violence here for me is violence against my time and my critical thinking skills. So it's like we just spent an hour doing this, and I get content out of it. So I guess I can't complain too much, but ultimately it's sort of like a time and respect other people by not selling them snake oil, which we also tried and managed to not end up being able to make that economically feasible. So maybe I'm just old man screams at other old man who's more successful at snake oil sales.
Yeah, I gotta say, I would not want to get into a conversation trying to unpack this. I do feel like the more I would interact with this person, he would flood the zone with information that I cannot rebut, or I need to. It's not worth my time. It was interesting. I need things to put under my drinks so that rings don't form on my furniture. And in that sense, A+.
Well, I hope that you do continue to test this on people. I hope that that in casual opportunities you get to test it and keep on reporting back, because now that I know how valuable, how much money I'm holding in my hand right now. $15 whole of this one coaster. Would you be willing
to try this hypothetically when bottle feeding a child?
Yeah. We'll go through. We'll have independent raters. Like, oh man, yeah, perfect. Well, Ethan, thank you for humoring this quixotic and nonetheless interesting and thought-provoking project. Thank you for the delicious rum, and thank you for being a guest here on the Modern Bar Cart podcast yet again.
It was a pleasure.
Hold on. You didn't think I forgot about our little noir mystery, did you? Let's find out how it ends.
The next day it rained, and it rained hard. harder than a Sunday crossword. But not nearly as hard as it would be to break the truth about this coaster to Ms. Sinclair. I still hadn't figured out what to say when suddenly she strolled into my office with an umbrella in one hand, a cigarette in the other, and that same look in her eye that suckered me into this case in the first place.
Well, Mr. Kozlik, did you and your friend make any progress on this quantum coaster that showed up at my doorstep? Tell me that you have. The uncertainty has been driving me crazy.
Uncertainty, huh? You ever heard of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, Miss Sinclair?
Can't say that I have. I'm more concerned with flesh and blood answers than with wispy principles.
Well, it's a physicist's way of saying that the more you know about one thing, the less you know about another, like trying to calculate the velocity and position of a bullet while it's flying through the air.
Sounds like a fancy way of saying you didn't learn anything about the coaster. I thought you were bringing in another expert to help you.
Well, we learned a few things, but what we learned had less to do with the coaster itself and more to do with the way that human perception works. And as for experts, well, we're all just human too.
But how am I supposed to live with that? This coaster could change the world. Or it could be junk. I need to know which.
What I'm saying is, the more we try to pin down every detail, the more the big picture slips away. Sometimes we have to live with that uncertainty. It's part of the deal. Not just in quantum physics, but in life.
So you're telling me this is no better than a lucky charm? It only works if I think it works. Well, I don't believe in luck. I'm going straight home to throw this darn thing in the garbage.
Now, Evelyn, I didn't say that. It just might take some more tests and some more time to figure out if the quantum effects of this coaster lie in its own physical properties or in the minds of those who interact with it. In the meantime, though, how would you like to accompany me to a place where the booze doesn't need a fancy gadget to make it go down easy? What do you say?
I suppose that sounds all right. Maybe we'll find some people there who can help us run more tests on this crazy coaster.
Sounds like more laughs than a barrel of placebos. Let's go. As we left my office that evening in search of a decent drink in this dark particle accelerator of a city, I couldn't help but wonder if it might be better to leave the fate of the quantum coaster in an unresolved superposition. At least this way we could keep the spooky action at a distance. Maybe stop it from getting up close and personal. And maybe that's why the universe created jazz music and good whiskey. To let us down easy when we get a little too close to the truth.